Okay, back again for more 0k action. Go straight to the game. Okay. Indeed, so this is the second game for the match between Fealthas and TheSponge, and this is going to be for the 1 vs 1 tournament of 0k for September. Just really saying this for the benefit of people watching this on YouTube, although I'm probably going to put this on the title as well. I've never actually done like a whole stream of a tournament before, or really, yeah, have done videos on like an actual game tournament. I think it's worked out alright. Had a few snags. We've dropped frames for streaming, but even that actually wasn't that bad. And I think that was mostly due to the fact that I was, you know, having to or rather my internet connection was having to contend with getting the data from the players playing and having to upload at the same time. Trying to do this on a shitty Australian connection, and well, what the hell, definitely pushing the connection to its limits, which is not really saying too much. But oh well, whatever. In any case, going to be playing on the Red Comet map. Don't know if I mentioned that before. Fealthas versus TheSponge. Pretty much the same elo, although I think this is actually an estimate that I've got there. I can't remember how to change it so it's exact, but whatever, it's similar enough. Fealthas starting off with hovers, why not? And TheSponge is starting off without a commander, and he's just going to have the buildings making themselves. A very common tactic in 0k, buildings making themselves like that. But anyway, yeah. Maces can Carmost Assault. Yeah, that's so bizarre. Those maces seem to be... Actually, wait a minute. So what counters maces then? Ravagers plus Slasher. Mace spam is superior. Ravager plus Slasher. Well, that's good to know actually, because I don't do too well versus certain matchups myself. Really? Jesus, that's going to be a bit of a balancing if that's actually true. But Laurie recommends Ravager plus Slasher. Ravager plus Slasher. Yeah, Ravagers, they kind of have really slow projectiles, like that's the problem. They are faster than maces, I suppose. But in any case, let's just get to the game itself. TheSponge also going for Hovercraft, why not? It's Hovercraft City. And going for a couple of daggers and nothing else apparently. And at the same time, Fealthas also going for a grand total of 1 dagger. As well as, of course, a quick quill. No quill just yet from TheSponge. Instead, he's just going to go for more daggers. Finally going for a quill eventually, but he's going to definitely be going for a bit more of an aggressive start. We'll see how that works out. He's even gone with no defenses, actually. Very, well, he does have the commander, but the commander's at level 0. It's still a bit of a risky thing to do. He does have a couple of daggers back here for defense, and the radar should be able to spot quite a bit that's coming in anyway. Still, we'll see what happens, though. So he's basically going to have to macro on 2 bits at once. On the defensive and on the... oh great, and on the offensive as well. Actually, the ping is... oh, it's 0 at the moment. What about myself? The Lightsman... ah, it's because they're all paused. Okay, well I didn't notice any lag myself, so... I don't think spectators can cause it as far as I know, and in any case I'm not really getting too much of a ping, well, compared to what I normally get anyway. To these players. What about the thing here? Lightman. Oh, that's what I should have been looking at. Oh, 600 milliseconds, so 500 now. Okay, that's pretty much par for the course. It's a little bit higher than usual, but that's because I'm streaming at the same time as well. But there we go, making it happen. But yeah, this is quite clearly showing that, you know, I can only do so much stuff online and stream at the same time, especially in 720p. Still, it's in HD, streaming in HD, there you go, so. And hopefully you're enjoying it live, or watching the YouTube video, it's all good. Interesting actually, doing this sort of thing and just having sort of 2 different audiences in mind at the same time. An audience that's watching this right now, however small it is, and an audience that's, well, you know, watching this days or who knows, maybe even years from now, in an archive on YouTube, you know, way after it's actually been done. Interesting actually having to keep both sort of, I don't know, time frames in mind, I suppose. Yeah, whatever. In either case, that's esoteric stuff aside. Let's just focus on the game itself. Wow, I really am going on quite a few tangents, actually. Maybe I could focus on on what's actually happening and provide an in-depth analysis. Because this is totally serious. They've got millions of dollars on the line for prizes. Well, not really. They've got kudos on the line, which is worth almost as much. Almost. Okay, so yeah, the sponge is going to be expanding towards the middle, and Fealthas definitely seems to be expanding a bit slower, but their actual metal income is the same, so no, never mind. I suppose he was just expanding a little bit more up, maybe? I mean, they both started at different corners. Interesting. Yeah, very interesting indeed. Of course, good old dagger versus dagger combat. Basically, it looks ridiculous, as you can see. Using their bloody Gauss rifles or Gauss cannons or whatever versus each other. I mean, micro, of course, does help immensely even in those sorts of ridiculous battles, but it's, yeah, still kind of silly to see, really, just because they're raiders and it takes so freaking long to reload and all that. It's almost like watching, you know, musketeers just sprinting all over the place, you know, periodically shooting at each other. Yes. Okay, they have to be running really quickly for that analogy to work, but I think you know what I'm talking about. And look at this, he's even actually going to be repairing it. Something that you don't see often enough in regular games, I suppose. But no, this is high-level tournament play. As far as I know, it should be high-level tournament play. I mean, we've gone for a few matches now. And, yeah, I'm not really sure what bracket we're even in. Probably should check that. Yes, probably wouldn't hurt. So yeah, as you can tell, this is the first time that I'm ever live streaming a whole tournament either, and yeah, it's been pretty exciting so far. I didn't actually stream myself playing the game. I could have just done that actually, now that I think of it. Rather than I just did a recording of it, just a local recording to put on YouTube. So people watching the stream, that'll be available probably as the first thing on YouTube. Well, the first 0K video anyway on YouTube. Yeah. So there you go. And for YouTube people watching this, well, you should have seen the other game by now. The other games before this by now. Provided that I actually upload them in chronological order. Which hopefully is going to be the case. Do that actual game, Ravager plus Slasher. There we go. Too bad I'm not going to see that in this game, unless if one of the players decides to switch over to light vehicles. But instead of that, I'm going to see a bit of a plane switch 5.5 minutes into the game. That is ridiculously early. Although this, well, for me it is anyway. The Sponge, he definitely does have the economy to back that up though. Very slight economic advantage over the Fealthas. Slight army disadvantage, but that's probably going to be remedied once he gets few birds up in the air. And as for Fealthas, he's just continuing to spam daggers, because why not, eh? Daggers are just that damn good. Well, okay, maybe the game could do a few more balance patches in order to make the hovercrafts a little bit more balanced, but yeah, especially the mace apparently. I haven't really played too much of the game myself, especially with as the hovers or versus hovers, to really be able to notice maces being that overpowered, but well, they might be, you never know. Maces from skirmishing ravagers fairly, yeah, that's right, Slashes outrange them. Yeah, actually, yeah, I suppose that sort of combo could work. In front, yeah, it's going to be a bit tricky to handle because of the fact that Slashers, they can't shoot over anything, so they won't be able to shoot over the Ravagers, but yeah, we won't be seeing that this game anyway. Won't stop me from going off on tangents and talking about various other matchups that we are not actually seeing right now. What we are seeing though is Fealthas, yeah, doing a nice bit of raiding, and yeah, basically managing to keep his forces alive, and just as well actually, because actually that's Fealthas, yeah, Fealthas is blue, so yeah, just as well actually, because he doesn't really have much of an army advantage. He's got an economic advantage, very sizable one actually. He must be yeah, he must be reclaiming from someone, I'm not entirely sure. In any case, he's got an economic advantage and not much of an army advantage. Army advantage just now going to hell thanks to those bombers. Very nicely done to the Sponge. Definitely going to clear away quite a bit of the army value for Fealthas, as well as hurt him a bit economically as well. Well, 7.5 minutes in, it's not going to make that horrible of a difference, but it's still going to put the hurt on the Sponge. The Sponge definitely has his work cut out for him. Might actually see Fealthas take this 2-0. Who'd think? Just have to wait and see. Where's that? Oh, okay, yeah, the shadows look a bit strange the way that they're like that, but oh, there you go. I suppose Bombers also beat Maces, so there you go. That's good to know. Did Fealthas won again? Did he win again? Is what he meant to say. Grammar Nazi. But yeah, it looks like he probably is going to win again. I mean, at the very least, we do have bombers by the Sponge, so he did manage to do quite a bit of damage to the Fealthas, to Fealthas, and Fealthas' army is really horrendous actually, his army value compared to the Sponge. Keep in mind though that Sponge does have a level 1 commander, so 1250 being laser, so yeah, 1250 of his metal is being added to that army value right there, which is obscured by the spectators thing if I try to actually indicate it with the mouse, but you can see it there. So yeah, Fealthas' army is climbing back up pretty steadily though. He definitely does have a noticeable economic advantage at the very least. He just needs to do a better job of keeping his stuff alive. To say the least. But once again we're going to see dagger on dagger action, and God, I really hope that the rest of the tournament is not going to be like this. Hopefully we're going to see, or at the very least we're going to see less flat maps. Because I mean this map isn't bad, but really it's basically a flat map with a couple of craters here, basically just to stop it from being a completely flat plane. More so than anything else. Okay, a couple of little bits here and there as well, but basically it's a yeah, vehicle slash hover slash tank map. Even more the daggers. Does he now? I think I hate daggers more. Although pork can be a bit of a pain in the ass, especially when they're doing that slow crawl towards you. Indeed. At the very least, though, it does look like the Sponge does have an air advantage, air superiority, and yeah, he's not afraid to use it. Although his bombers are getting a little bit left out in the cold, though. Oh, actually, very nicely done. I think he might have actually been using the bombers as a bit of a bait, actually, because yeah, I did notice that Fealthas did boost his fighters into the fray there, and then yeah, then the Swifts came in for the Sponge and yeah, basically took them all out. So actually, yeah, I think that could have been a very nice little trap being laid out there, as well as doing some damage to the ground army of Fealthas as well. So very nicely done, or it could just be a coincidence. In any case, down goes the Sponge's commander, and yeah, looks like that is that for commanders for both sides. So yeah, now just going by sheer army values, like as in raw army values without the commanders included for the army values at the bottom right there. So the Sponge, yeah, being very clearly in front now, despite the fact that Fealthas has had an economic advantage for quite a bit of the game at this stage. Interesting how that works out. Yeah, Fealthas definitely does have a sizable advantage, and a very sizable economic advantage, and a very sizable energy advantage as well. But the Sponge has just done a much better job in keeping his, well, now he has anyway, done a much better job in keeping his units alive. He's kind of sending them into a bit of a meat grinder now though, and definitely losing quite a few of them now. Very unfortunate. He's basically just suiciding them on all these defenses. I think he's just trying to probe, find a bit of a weak spot, but nah, he's just getting whittled down to basically nothing instead. Now, instead, yeah, now the army gap is not nearly anywhere as big as it used to be, and I think the air superiority of the Sponge is also fading as I think it's also fading away as well, actually, now that we're getting some dedicated air sup fighters from Fealthas. No air sup fighters from the Sponge. In fact, he's actually completely ceased plane production, and instead going for a whole bunch of halberds and daggers to follow up. We'll see how that works out. He's just going to be using them as regular assaults. God. Sorry about that, just a bit of an itchy nose. Yeah, it looks like he's just using them as regular assaults, and well, I suppose they don't do too bad in that regard either. Even though they won't be able to tank shots nearly as well when actually firing, due to a special mechanism they use. Still, they're doing a bit of damage, but the daggers are not doing much against them actually, only a couple of halberds being lost. So overall, that was actually a pretty good raid by the Sponge. Huh, I'll be damned. Damn good raid indeed. Yeah, the Sponge, yeah, once again, he actually does have a higher army count, strangely enough, but Fealthas all this time has kept up a higher amount of metal coming in. Look at this, just going up to 40 briefly, for God's sake. No, his preservation of units just doesn't seem to be working too well this time. There's these bombers, a little bit overkill to send them up against these daggers, and the daggers can even attack bloody air units as well because of these guys diving like that, which is kind of ridiculous. Still though, the Sponge definitely did some pretty good maneuvers, especially when he trapped in a sizable portion of Fealthas' air force in the top left before and managed to take it out. Very nicely done, actually, very nicely laid trap. Might actually get a bit caught out though, this air battle that's happening at the moment. Kind of hard to tell who's going to win this. I think Fealthas might be able to, at the very least. Kind of hard to tell. No, actually no, the Sponge reinforcing with the extra Hawks I think might have the advantage, and yep, he actually does. Just zooming out there, yet managing to get air superiority, and yeah, not really sure what the hell Fealthas is doing, just leaving his fighter loitering there. Should be sending it back rather than just letting it get it torn to shreds, and that's exactly what's going to happen, provided that the Sponge targets it, and yep, exactly, yep, gets focused fired and destroyed. So the Sponge, wow, it definitely has a massive military edge, even though his economy is still not as good as Fealthas's. But yeah, you can see Fealthas, I mean, he's got the economic advantage, but he's not really winning that many engagements. He's just losing far more than he's yeah, he's just losing far more than he's destroying, and even though he's got a better economy to replace his losses, he's just, yeah, I'm not on hold, yeah, that's right. He's just not, yeah, he's just not making his attacks worth it. His battles are just losing way too much every time he goes to battle, basically. As well as Fealthas, he's actually focused quite a bit more on defences, while the Sponge hasn't, but the Sponge, as you can see, he doesn't seem to have any qualms with going right through Fealthas' defences, and yeah, just taking out everything, including his economy. Yeah, what he actually should be doing, the Sponge, what he should be doing, of course, is setting one of his halberds to hold fire and sending that forward, and then using that to tank damage while all the other halberds just hammer the defences from long range. But well, this isn't working out too badly either. It's just not being quite as cost effective, and once again the gap is going to be shortened between Fealthas and the Sponge, but then again, Fealthas is probably going to try to engage or counterattack the Sponge, and probably going to end up losing quite a few of his units again, and then again we're going to see ourselves with a familiar army gap between the two players. But yeah, look at this, 41 metal to 27 metal for the Sponge. That's just insane. And to think Fealthas still doesn't have an army advantage. He does have the defense advantage, but it doesn't really seem to be doing him much good. And yeah, we got a nice big reclaim field here as well, and it looks like Fealthas is taking advantage of that. Yep, sending one single builder to reclaim and two to actually build. Interesting mixture there. You think he would have sent they would have done it the other way around, two to reclaim and one to build, but I suppose two would build that much more quickly. So there you have it, plenty of reclaim all over the place. Where is, oh, okay, so right around here, yeah. And looks like Fealthas is definitely taking advantage of that. His economy is through the roof, his army advantage is not there yet, but yeah. I mean, really, if the Fealthas can just avoid, you know, engaging in losing battles, then he can get an army advantage over the Sponge, if he can avoid, you know, losing too much, and having Sponge not lose anywhere near as much. I mean, really, his economy is much better, it's just a matter of, you know, not sacrificing his units, basically, yeah. Interesting enough, he's actually going for a bit of a limited version of his own, of Fealthas' attack, and not working out too well, strange enough. Two halberds without any air support, not going to work out too well, and in fact, yeah, the Sponge definitely has air superiority, and again, Fealthas sending in things piecemeal, it's just, yeah, it's not working for him. These piecemeal attacks, he lets his stuff get just lets his stuff get focused fired way too much. You look at this, another one of his hawks strays away and it just gets focused fired yet again. It's yeah, not working out too well. And again, we're going to have nice little air engagements, but Fealthas again is engaging. He just doesn't have the numbers in these engagements, and yeah, the Sponge, he's just going to keep growing his military. Well, Fealthas is just going to keep sacrificing bit after bit, but wait, yeah, I'll be damned. We've actually got a bit of a retreat for the Sponge for some bizarre reason. He actually lost a couple of hawks. Not really sure why he decided to retreat there. He had the numbers advantage. He just needed to make sure his focus firing there. Very strange indeed. But yeah, Sponge still maintaining military superiority and air superiority. Superiority pretty much everywhere except for economy, strangely enough. And yeah, you can see why. I mean, time again, Fealthas just keeps on sending in things piecemeal, which, well, it can work. It depends on the circumstances and, you know, how you actually make use of those little fire teams, or whatever you want to call them, that just go out on their own to try to do a bit of damage against the enemy. In this sort of battlefield, it's not going to work. But yeah, I'll make LVs for one and more. Well, I mean, so far we've only seen them used like once, I think, on a flat map. So really, it's not like as if we can, you know, conclusively say just from that light vehicles are underpowered for 1 versus 1s. But there you go. Fealthas has already come up with that conclusion. Very forward-thinking indeed, apparently. And yeah, we've got a bit of a stalemate here. Fealthas has still got the economic lead, and for the first time that I can remember for this particular match, he's finally got a bloody army lead. He really took his time with that. He still does not have air superiority, just judging roughly by the numbers of hawks on both sides. He does have, well, some makeshift anti-air setup at the very least, but yeah, look at this again, yep. Bomber's going to come in. He doesn't even have to bother engaging with the daggers, really, to be honest. But yeah, Bomber's going to come in. They're going to bomb the shit out of him. Okay, at the very least... dear. At the very least, the Sponge, for Fealthas anyway, the Sponge did actually leave a few of his bombers undefended. I'm not really sure why he didn't send his fighters along with them as well. Okay, maybe he doesn't know if he's got air superiority or not, but if you don't know if you've got air superiority or not, why are you sending bombers out alone in the first place? I mean, really, how the hell does that make any sense? Yeah, well. Sponge, he's still holding on though, but his army, he no longer has an army advantage, and now he's just trying to send them straight into the maw of the enemy. Not a particularly good maw to be in though, given that he's getting torn to shreds, so... Yeah, he needs to get out of there, and yeah, just losing more and more stuff. He's actually making the same mistakes that Fealthas was, kind of sending in his stuff in against entrenched defences and such, but there you go, sick of the game. It's 2-0. Pretty interesting game nonetheless though. Sponge did a good job holding on there, just wasn't quite enough though. God, bit of back and forth action there, and now we got a bit of lag for some reason. Well, there you have it. I shall see you all in the next game.